Cowboys owner Jerry Jones there discussing how he would want his players to protest, potentially kneel before the anthem, not during the anthem. Stephen A., the fact that he's discussing this in the wake of the shooting that we've discussed all morning long, is this irresponsible or even tone deaf?
I think it's tone deaf. I think it's tone deaf, and I think it's on purpose. Because the bottom line is that Jerry Jones cares about what he cares about, and I'll let Max get into that once I finish. But I just think that the thing that's important to recognize is the fact that, again, Jerry Jones has been missing in action for months upon months at a time. And for Dallas Cowboys, like DeMarcus Lawrence and others that would say we don't need to hear from Jerry Jones, do you see now why we needed to hear from him? Because we need to know where he stands. Why? Because we knew where he stood before. You're one of the preeminent faces of the National Football League if you're Jerry Jones. You're an incredibly powerful and influential owner, okay? What you say has cachet. It matters. As he said himself, he speaks to president, past and present. He has spoken to commanders and chiefs of this nation. And so when you have this mentality that you're not going to alienate your fans and you're not going to alienate people down there in the South, I mean, we understand where you're coming from. We get all of that. The question is, when you going to stand up, Jerry? Because in the end, what does this come down to? And see, we can look at business, and that's one argument. The other argument that can be made is that you're 77 years old, if I remember correctly. You are a billionaire. You don't have to worry about your quality of life dissipating. You don't have to worry about being harmed. Ain't nobody going to bother Jerry. It's simply a matter of, do you agree with these players who happen to be black, some of whom wear your uniform? Do you agree with them? And are you sensitive to the plight that they have articulated and so many black people have articulated? We are enduring on a day-to-day basis. Do you care about that? Or do you care about appeasing those who ain't going through such things and don't give a damn? Because those are the two sides, basically. The in-between stuff is a different matter for a different day, and that involves business, and that involves your constituents, and it involves your fan base and all of that stuff. We get that part. But there is two diametrically opposed sides. And in Jerry's case, because he opened his mouth about Colin Kaepernick and was defiant about what his players would do, he wasn't just talking about him. He was talking about what anybody wearing his uniform would do. Even if they're black, even if they're disenfranchised, even if they're persecuted, even if they're treated unfairly. He said, I don't give a damn. I'm going to make that call for you. So if you're listening to Marcus Lawrence, that is why we said, where you at, Jerry? We looking for you, Jerry. We need to find you, Jerry. We need to hear what your feelings are since George Floyd was killed. We need to hear all of this, Jerry. Where you at? Because we needed to understand exactly where he stood, and when he had an opportunity to speak, what did he say? I'm going to talk about grace. Grace is what the order of the day is, and all of this other stuff that amounted to nothing. And we're not used to hearing Jerry Jones say nothing. That's the problem here. So to me, I'm not surprised, but as much ado about nothing. And Jerry Jones is just essentially letting us know where he stands by not standing at all for something.
Jerry Jones wants everyone's money, period. And that's what you were referring to when you said, I'll let Max talk. He just wants your money. He wants everyone patronizing the Cowboys. That's all. And at first, he thought he's going to take a little bit more of a hardline stance about standing for the anthem because the mainstream supported it. And he didn't think there'd be a bigger financial hit. He's just looking at his bottom line. A bigger financial hit from the mainstream than there would be from the counterculture in this case. And then as the countercultural movement grew, he thought, wait a minute, okay, maybe I have to placate both sides. And now he doesn't even know which side he should really appease because it's you put your finger in the air to see which way the wind is blowing. It ain't blowing for, hey, these anthem protests are, a terrible thing that are just a fringe kind of thing in our culture. No, it's become mainstream. He just wants the money. I don't know what he really believes wouldn't stop him. I'm sure he has his preferences, but they're obviously not deeply held enough for him to stand on principle about something if it's going to cost him the dough. By the way, team owners, as far as I understand it, cannot unilaterally make rules about how players should participate in ceremonies. I don't know if players really understand this. When Jerry Jones says, our players are going to do X, if they don't, there's really nothing he can do. There's a league-wide policy, which once upon a time said you're not required to stand for the anthem, which is, in my view, Stephen A., if it were challenged, is unconstitutional. And I don't think that a league can say you must parrot you're the owner of this team's political speech, which standing for the anthem is. If sitting for it's a protest, or kneeling for it, then standing for it, it's also, if that's speech, then standing for it's also speech. It's just speech that coincides with the owners of the team. And I don't think that they can do that. My guess is First Amendment protections would extend to the workplace in that case, but I don't know. I'm not a legal scholar. But I can say that if the NFL adopts a policy that, no, you don't have to stand, then you don't have to stand. Doesn't matter what Jerry Jones says. If the NFL then adopts a policy, well, you don't have to participate in the ceremony, but if you're on the field, then you do. And if you don't want to be, then don't be on the field for the ceremony. That's fair. And then if the player's out on the field for the ceremony, I suppose they can be compelled to stand.